Welcome to episode 9 of Property Avenue WA. We hope you've had a good week. Football started, so that's a bonus. My team won. I don't know about yours, but a good week had by all. Tonight, as you all know, Property Avenue WA is your avenue to matters property in Western Australia, and the focus is very much about property. It's very much about Western Australia and a whole range of topics. Last week, we were with Gabriel Wong from Tang Law, and we discussed wills and the importance of wills, particularly if you own property and you own any major assets. So we've had a range of different topics. Tonight, I'm looking forward to tonight because there's been the home builder grant package that's been released by the federal government, and of course there's also been a package released by the state government to build. But tonight I've got Dion Dosualdo who's our CEO at AICWA, which is the Australian Institute of Conveyancing in WA, and we're going to discuss a few proposals that we feel that perhaps could be introduced for not just the building industry, but also those in the established market. So there's a range of topics. We look forward to you making your comments, asking your questions. Because it's live, you can ask your questions, and we'll respond to those when and where we can. And any other comments you've got with regard to questions you may have. But Dion, his background, he's been with us now, the CEO of AICWA, as is known, for the best part of 6 years. I knew Dion before when he was also the accounts manager and looked after the settlement fraternity and a number of others within Landgate, which is our state titles office. And so he's, I'm not sure whether he's all that, I don't know whether he actually realised how big a job he was taking on when he became the CEO of AICWA. He's fortunate enough to have 2 children, which I'm hoping that he gets the opportunity to see them occasionally. And other than that, he's got a background in business law, which I wasn't aware of until we spoke earlier on tonight. So without further ado, Dion, great to have you on board, mate, and I really appreciate you accepting our invitation.
Oh, thanks, Tony, and thank you for the invite. I look forward to having a chat today.
So, mate, it's been an interesting time, and certainly with regard to, as we've discussed with just about every guest, when we started when we first went live with Property Avenue WA, but COVID, with regard to your observation to the conveyancing industry, what's been your observation?
Just with the stimulus packages, or just?
Oh no, just with regard to the industry as a whole, as far as the conveyancing industry is concerned.
Yeah, the last few years have been very tumultuous, as you probably know. We've struggled with a poor market, but one of the interesting things that we've struggled with is working with buyers and sellers and trying to communicate the relevance of what it is a conveyancer does, and I think a lot of people out there just don't understand what it is that the conveyancing professional or settlement agent does, and that's been something that we've been trying to address. But I would urge any buyers and sellers out there, one of the first conversations you have is and should be with your settlement agent, otherwise known as a conveyancer.
Yeah, and it's interesting you made that comment, because obviously been around myself for some time, but even now there's still even people in other professions who sort of say, I didn't realise you did that. I didn't realise you did that. So, but that being said, it's intriguing with regard to, on a personal note, how much inquiry that has been going of late. So certainly March, April was, as it has been, was for everybody, and certainly other industries beyond our own. March, April was pretty scary times and was the world of unknown. But it's intriguing as to what's happened in WA from my observation. And I'm assuming you would have you feel as you'll be out with the rest of the conveyancing crew that perhaps that's similar.
Yeah, it is, and that as soon as sort of COVID took hold, I suppose a way of explaining it, the market just went into a freeze. But we started to look at other markets. We were looking at what was happening in Scotland and in the UK, and although they're different markets, obviously being in the Northern Hemisphere, there is similarity, especially with the Scottish market, because you've got a very tight property market there, and it was bouncing back quite quickly, even when they were hitting the peaks of COVID. And then we thought, well, is this going to have an impact here in Perth? Well, we're going to see something similar. And you know what? We start to see buyers coming back into the market, and even sellers saying, you know what, we're going to push ahead. We're going to, we're still going to sell and buy in this market. And I think WA has been quite different than other parts of the states.
Because certainly when we were talking with a couple of the guys earlier, a couple of our guests previously, and both at real estate agents and others, that was the observation that we also sort of took, because there was, and that's the other thing we've got to be careful, and hence part of what this is all about with Property Avenue WA, that you can get caught up sometimes with the document commentary and the papers or whatever that are out and about. That a lot of it is focused about the East Coast and not necessarily about the West Coast. And, there was a stage there where everyone's coming in and saying, God, the value is going to drop by 30-50%. So hang on, read that again. That's New South Wales, that's in Victoria. And all of a sudden, that's not quite the case. And from talking to a couple of agents that we have had on board, and certainly from my observation in what we're doing, it's been fairly steady. But it's very intriguing as to what you were just saying then, and it's very intriguing as to the inquiry and the enthusiasm. And I've certainly sort of looked at it to say, well, as much as there's a negative, there's a positive, and there's an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. We keep an eye on the key Landgate activity stats, and we're talking about new lot creations, we're talking transfer documents, total documents lodged, all that sort of stuff, and we hit rock bottom in May, and probably the end of April, early May, and now we're coming up, and that's shown in the stats. It's right there. So some really positive signs.
But as I also say, in the nature of our profession, the work and the income that we're now experiencing, and the lulls we're experiencing now, that's the work that came in the door or didn't come in the door March, April, because there's that period of work that you've got to do before you get to the income scenario, and which is very different to a lot of other professions, and hence that impact that would have as far as the statistical side of it's concerned. It's interesting, mate. With regard to for those that have just joined us, I'm speaking with Dion Dosualdo, who is the CEO of AICWA, and we're going to talk shortly with regard to the home buyer package and some of the stimulus packages that are out there for the marketplace, but also more importantly, what could be done, and some of the things that we believe could be done for the established residential market. So, and with regard to that, Dion, the home buyer package that's been introduced by the federal government, that's a $25,000 grant. The WA new home construction grant is $20,000, and then the first homeowner grant. So if you're a first homeowner, you get a further $10,000, which was already in place. That's massive in the scheme of things.
Yeah, it is.
And to see that people are camping outside real estate offices last weekend here in Perth, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, we haven't seen that since 2013. If you remember some of those land releases where we had similar sort of behaviours, getting out there in the cold.
I know.
It's a big carrot that's been dangled in front of them, and you can see why a lot of first-home buyers are just going, right, this is I want a piece of this. But they're jumping into it, head first, I suppose, or just leaping in there. There's no thought about what could possibly be the ramifications of this.
Yep. And the other thing that sort of concerns me is I suppose the fact being is, and look, let's not kid ourselves. I'm not suggesting that this is not a good idea, but my point being is that my concern is when's all this, if that does occur, and one of the articles I read today was suggesting that it's something like 206, 207, that since it was at these levels. But then, of course, there's a very limited period of time which this has all got to be achieved. Like it's June 4th to the end of December.
Fine print.
That's a small window for a lot of work to be done if the numbers are like they're suggesting.
Oh yeah, and look, I don't know much about grano workers, but I know trying to lay a slab in winter isn't easy. So, and making it set. So, you know, you've got a lot of tradies out there who are going to have to find some creative ways of getting the work done very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I mean, as I say, we're not knocking that situation. We're not knocking what's going on. But I think the fact is that, as we've been discussing, that it's an initiative which is fantastic. And if you're a first home buyer or someone who wants to build, fabulous.
Yeah.
But my question is, and my question to you is, why then are we not looking? Is because it's not just, and particularly WA, we've had it's been a challenge for a few years now. Yes, we had a peak. No one denies that. But that's been a while now, and the property market as a whole, and all parties associated with property, and I don't just mean settlement agents and real estate agents, but there's a lot of other subsidiaries to finance brokers is a classic. All those different bodies are going through, or those industries are going through a challenging time, and COVID has added to that.
Yep.
Why are we not looking at it in some sort of stimulus for the rest of the marketplace, the rest of the property market?
I agree, and that's why you know, it's a holistic approach, really. When you look at the whole industry, you know, the established sector and the new sector as well, and look at it as a whole, because they all work in conjunction with each other. You can't just focus on one sector and think that's where the answers lie. You've got to look at this holistically. And, you know, we've got to, like you said, that there is first home buyers out there who don't want to buy a new property. They want an established residence which they can go into and put a lick of paint on it, or, you know, do their own little touch on it and start to build their own equity. You know, and that's really important, because when you're buying a new property, you're starting from zero. It's not like you can accumulate equity in it very quickly. You know, yeah, you can maybe put a nice little garden in and maybe a swimming pool, but when you buy an old house, you know, there's some fantastic opportunities there, especially for the young up and, you know, the go-getters who really want to sort of renovate. There's a real opportunity, and I was one of those people many years ago. And I ended up spending 12 years renovating a house, but I don't want to go down that. You know, but we are locking out certain people within the industry, within the market, and I just don't understand why we're doing that. And that's primarily one of the things that the AIC has been looking at, because we talk about self-interest sometimes. You know, what's good for our members? What's good for our industry? Well, what's good for everybody? And that's why we've identified a few key initiatives that we're trying to push on the state government, and hopefully they listen.
Yep. Because, well, my point being is, it's like everything, isn't it? Not everybody wants to buy. People want new, and people want to build homes, but not everybody wants to build a house. And
No.
And so my point being is, particularly in WA, we need to stimulate this market. Is this not an opportunity to stimulate the market? Is this not an opportunity that, yes, no denying the building industry and we're looking at jobs, but there's other jobs in the property market as well, and surely those they need to be encouraged and ensure that people aren't laid off. And I mean, how many people in the conveyancing industry? I mean, it'd be interesting to know how many have been. We've been lucky. I've been able to retain my staff, but how many haven't? How many have downsized? How many have sort of gone to do elsewhere? How many have closed their door and said, "Look, we're not going to do conveyancing for a while"? That's just one industry, you know.
And look, and just on that point, we've had no growth in that industry. So we've got very few students coming through the system. We've got very few people who actually want to start up their own business, which is, you know, and this is a really important and a really passionate point I want to make on this, is that our membership is over 80% women who are small business owners, which is fantastic. You're not going to find many industry groups that are like that. And so this has been a gateway for a lot of women to get into a profession, you know, hang a shingle out the front and start up a business. And what the state government have effectively done is not encourage this further, you know, and it's remained stagnant for such a long period of time. And so we haven't seen any growth in the number of businesses that are opening. It's really sad, you know, it really is sad.
Yeah, it is, and it is a profession. That's the thing that I keep on saying to people. This is a profession that we're dealing with. It's not just, you know, and for a long time, and you and I know, and you and I have had this discussion with regard to the you know, we need to ensure that we are seen as a profession, because that's we are. You don't just rock up and become a settlement agent. And certainly the line of work that we've now got to do as a profession, and the expectations and the advice that you're required, people are asking for, it's It is. It's a profession, and it's an opportunity for sure for those that want to go and want to have a career. Then, mate, I couldn't recommend anything better. It's
Oh, yeah, it's extremely rewarding, and I see it as almost a specialised field of property law. That's how I see it. I mean,
yep, exactly.
But that's not how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I always say we're probably 1 or 2 steps short of being exactly that, classified as a lawyer. Generally, you won't find too many conveyancers. Their knowledge, and particularly those that have been around for a while, say no more. But the fact being is that knowledge, and you learn every day. There's something new every day. So it's intriguing. But more patrol. So we get back to, we do digress, but with regard to the AIC, so the fact that we're talking about implementing or introducing some policy and implementing some stimulus other than just the building industry, would you like to make mention of what those particular specifics are?
Yeah, so just on AICWA, we do a lot of advocacy for conveyancers and settlement agents, but we also look at how can we support the clients of our members, and this is where we've sort of honed in on this sort of 3 points that we think are really good ideas for the WA economy here, and something that we can bring in and it can have immediate effect. So one of the first ones that we've sort of identified, I'm just looking at my notes here, is raising the stamp duty concession thresholds from 430k to 550, and this is a no-brainer. It's just a readjustment, pushing it up to where the medium house price is, and you're not going to see a great loss in the coffers of the Office of State Revenue or Treasury. We believe that this would stimulate a lot more activity. So it's just a readjustment. What this does, though, is it can potentially create a situation where investors who have been holding on to properties, even dead rentals, which currently need a lick of paint, or you just can't get anyone to rent them because they're just a bit trashed. This is the opportunity to off-sell these properties, and for the investors, the established investors, to then sell it on to first home buyers who are keen to, they can put up with a crappy old kitchen or, a terrible mouldy old bathroom, and they'll get in there and they'll clean it up and they'll make it look good. So that's what raising the stamp duty idea is about. It's just creating more properties that are on the market that are accessible to a lot more people. It's about affordability. That's what it is. It's about affordability.
Just while you're on that, can I just interrupt for 1 second? Sure. Just with regard to that, with the building or the home builder grant, that also caters for renovation.
Yeah.
One thing that I was going to check on is that if I bought if I had a first home buyer that bought a residential home and wanted to make their own renovations with regard to that, they would qualify for that home builder grant regarding renovation. Yeah.
Correct. And so, if they're looking to spend $150,000, which you can spend quite easily on a renovation, I can tell you that.
And still going, I might
add. But you can clock up 150 quickly when you put on an additional room or a second story, and then add a bathroom and so forth. So yeah, you're right. So there's an opportunity here where you can get into buy a house that's under, say, 550. 540 or something like that, 520, and and you're not paying any duty, and that sort of dividend that you're making there, I suppose, or that bonus of not having to pay duty, you can throw it into renovating that house and really take advantage of that 150k limit on the stimulus package.
But that's my point, though. That's my point, Dion. If we looked at it along that on a broader scale with regard to property across the board, all of a sudden you would still be providing jobs for the building industry, but you're also looking at not everybody doing the same thing. You're spreading the load,
And it's about complementary stimulus packages. So you're looking at what ideas are going to complement what is already in place now, and that's what we're not seeing. And that's so hence why the AICWA is advocating for that threshold to be raised a little bit, in line with what the medium house price is. And this is well overdue. I honestly can't remember when the last time that threshold changed. It could be 6 years. I really don't know, but it's been a while. That's how
without doubt. I mean, I'm struggling. I know I think the stamp duty was out at one point. There was concessions for stamp duty, which were higher levels at one point, but they've been brought back in. And I think someone will tell me otherwise, but I think it was up near the 550 mark or thereafter, and then it was being brought back down.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's up that way. I am getting grey.
We all are. And the second point that we're sort of making is around the first home buyer grant. So currently they are only for new builds, and we want to bring in 20K, or we want to see 20K for established properties. And again, it's about supporting first home buyers getting in and buying houses that may not be the most beautiful house on the street. That old thing, buying the worst house on the best street. That's what we want to see. We want to see people having the opportunity to buy in established areas as well, because you're getting a lot of new home buyers. They've been pushed out to the outer suburbs, the outer ring of the metro area, and that's not just here in Perth. We're talking other regional areas as well. So again, pushed out. No one wants the urban sprawl, because we know the issues with trying to create amenity for that. So let's encourage some of that urban infill, or even purchasing those residential properties that are close to urban centres. So that's why we'd like to see a 20K grant. And again, it's just been the parity with what is with the new residential build grant. So I mean, the other thing with regard to that 20 grand and first home buyers, the classic example I have had, I would suggest over the last 12 months, 18 months, probably longer, the number of clients that we've had, and I'm not talking about Geraldton, I'm talking about across the board, that we've had clients, and particularly in the city, who, for example, grandchildren, grandma, grandpa have gone to an aged care facility, want to sell their house, so they just decide to sell the property to the grandchildren or the grandson or the granddaughter, and then the grandkids decide they're going to renovate and modernise the place. Opportunity. Yep. Be it Mount Lloyd, be it at Vic Park, wherever the case would be. But 20 grand all of a sudden, and then the renovation, the home builder program, hey, we're still achieving the same thing. We're still achieving, we're creating jobs, but we're creating opportunity and we're creating stimulus. Yeah, sure. Totally agree. Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah. And well, you almost gave me a great little segue just then to when you're talking about retirees, like wanting to sell their properties, whether it's to a family member or just offload properties. Retirees really aren't supported here in Western Australia to downsize in any manner, and I think there is this misconception that retirees have paid off their mortgage, so they've got no debt, and the other thing is that they're quite happy staying where they are. Well, the reality is that there is a lot of retirees out there that still got mortgages and would love to pay them off, and would like to do so by downsizing. But why would you want to downsize if you're just going to buy another house where you're paying, fair bit of duty? You're not really progressing anywhere. You're not actually making any advancement in life. And when you're at that retirement age or over 65, you don't want to be not getting anywhere. You've worked really hard in life. You want to benefit from your little nest egg that you built. And there's also this misconception that all retirees are living in great areas and they'll get a fantastic return on their property. Again, that's not always necessarily the case. But what I'm sort of getting at with the third point that we wanted to do is we want to have concession rates for retirees who are looking to downsize. So maybe they're looking to sell their property and move to a regional area, do that tree change or that sea change. All along the WA West Coast here, we've got some fantastic areas that are crying out for people to move into those areas. And we've got retirees that want to go there, but they're not incentivised in any way to do that. And they're rattling around in some large family homes that, there's some first home buyers who would love to buy them. But where's the stimulus? Where's the support for retirees? And we're just not seeing it. They're forgotten. They're forgotten buyers and sellers in our market.
Yeah, and interesting you make that point, because, and I'm sure I'm no different, but I mean, I'm not always operating within the office on a day-by-day basis, because I'm down here operating here as well. But the way my life's been the last 12 or 18 months, it's had its challenges. But with regard to that being said, I'll get phone calls. People come into the office. People make phone calls to the office. People ring me up, whatever. And of course, more often than not, the number of people in their 60s plus who are saying, "Oh, do we get a concession because of we've got the pensioner card, or we've got the seniors card, or we've retired," and the stamp duty. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, one of my, I'm on LinkedIn, and one of the guys who I've had a lot to do with when I say a lot to do with, my involvement in the Chamber of Commerce back previously, and his comment was, "Well, I thought stamp duty, that was one of those things that were going to be addressed with the old GST when it was introduced, but it's sort of been swept under the carpet and forgotten about." But certainly, as far as the older fraternity, and I put myself in that category these days, but where's the incentive? When you consider selling fees, then stamp duty again, there's got to be some genuine interest in what that can do and what that can do for the marketplace.
Yeah, and that sort of reform is what we need here in Western Australia. And we're starting to see similar reforms happening across Australia, or people starting to talk about it. This conversation is actually being repeated across Australia now. And you may have heard, ideas, let's abolish the stamp duty, and that's probably a topic for another day. But sometimes, incremental changes can start to, they don't destabilize the market. They don't create too many waves. And I think, bringing in some concessions for the retirees in that market is really important. And it just astounds me that they constantly get forgotten in this much bigger property market. So I'd like to see something happen there.
And I think it's an important market, because my point being, what we're talking about here is not just the retirees and that age bracket, but also then you look back at the first home buyer. You've got concessions there. You've got that domino effect. Then, of course, then that I upgrade, the first home buyer comes in, and away we go. I downsize, and so we go. And then we're creating that activity. We're creating that domino effect.
That's right.
It's logical business, would it not be?
It is, and that's what we're doing here. So we're creating confidence in the market. So creating confidence for retirees to downsize. Then that property is going on the market, and you got and a buyer will be the first home buyer who's got the grant and willing to purchase that property. It's about maintaining this whole ecosystem, and everyone benefiting from it. And I don't want to harp back on the single stimulus of just the new property, but again, it's just so narrow in its focus. It's just not holistic, and that's what we need, and that's what we're missing. It's about building confidence back into the market. And I fully appreciate there's going to be people who find a home and they want to live there for 20, 30 years and they don't want to move. But speaking from my own personal experience, when my parents got to a certain age, they downsized quite rapidly and quickly. So they went from having a large family home to a much more manageable home, small, block. And then from there, they went to an even smaller place where they had pretty much no garden, and they started to look at it's more like almost like an aged care sort of scenario. And they did some quite quick concession, and there was nothing there for them, and they used to be frustrated, going, well, why would we want to sell, and they took the hit, they took a financial hit on doing it. And I think this is repeated for a lot of retirees in our community.
And with regard to those that sort of proposal and those incentives or initiatives, it was interesting today that I came up with, was brought to my attention. This is where I sort of struggle with some of these. I know in a political sense, the respective governments have been doing a mountain of work to do what they've done to create the economy and hold everything together. And I think when you look at what's happening overseas and things like that, we've been damn lucky in so many ways as to where, and the leadership that's being shown by our politicians. Unless, of course, you watched 60 Minutes last weekend, might have been a bit different. But as far as our leaders are concerned, both at state and federal level, I don't think you complain too much about the way they've gone about things and held things together. We're pretty lucky. But what interestingly on a state level, the state government introduced a package, a relief package for the rental market, something like $30 million, I think it was, which meant that you could apply to get up to a maximum of $2,000 to have rental assistance, so along those lines. I don't know the full mechanics of it all. That's basically it's $2,000. The information that I have to date is the fact that it's been 17 applications for that assistance. Now that's $34,000. There's a $30 million program put in place, of which $34,000 has been used to date. Now, my point that I'm saying is, if that is correct, then it's a no-brainer when you consider a whole property industry, and certainly the rental market is part of the property industry, but surely we could have a look at what we're talking about here. And as I say, we're not knocking what's going on in the rental market, what's been trying to do there. Perhaps they expected more difficult times than what's have occurred. And we're not knocking with regard to what's happening in building. But surely, when you look at first home buyers, when you look at the age fraternity, there's got to be some benefits. And I don't think really, truly, if you look at the big picture, what's in between those two parameters would not have a big impact. We'd still create stimulus, and would still create money for the coffers, if you like, when it comes to the government pockets.
Yeah, that's right. And look, some of the 3 points that we're sort of raising can be brought in immediately. So they're going to have immediate effects. And if they don't work, we'll know that. Yep. So with the building stimulus packages, the new building stimulus packages we're seeing interest, of course, immediate interest, but we just don't know what the end results will be. We know from just looking at the WA market, there has been a decline in demand for new builds for quite some time now. We also know that WA is a very small pond when it comes to builders, so there's only a few builders that are really going to benefit from this. So, and I don't want to make any disparaging comments against those top builders, but it's wonderful that they're getting richer, and the subbies that work for them are doing really well. But again, it's the love is not being spread across the whole industry here. So we have to acknowledge that.
Yep. Oh, look, I agree, and I think that, and so with that, what's the proposed? How is AIC now going about that? Okay, you've established some initiatives, 3 key initiatives that you want to identify. So what's the game plan with regard to AIC and our profession with regard to that?
So I suppose the game plan really, or the strategy behind it, is we've gone out to our membership and asked them to contact the local MPs and sort of raise awareness. This is a very sort of basic grassroots sort of approach. From our perspective, we have contacted the minister. We've also been in touch with various CEOs within various state government departments, so Landgate, OSR, and I think it's just those two actually, and just advise them of what our plans are. And now we're going to seek some support for that. We're ramping up a little bit of a campaign, but again, we can spend a lot of money on this, and we can spend tens of thousands of dollars, but at the end of the day, we have a clear message here of some 3 points that we want the state government to listen and to investigate. We're not trying to overcomplicate it. We're not trying to fluff it up with beautiful pictures and happy families running along beaches. These are 3 points that we think need to be considered, and we want to see the state government actually take the time to look at them and hopefully understand how important they are.
Has the real estate industry responded to it? Have they sort of, because I would have thought they would be, because even when it comes to land sales, there's going to be a lot of real estate offices that aren't going to have that supply of land to be able to sell, and so they are going to miss out on this opportunity as well, I would think.
Yeah.
Have that industry got on board with it? Have you had a response from them?
Yeah, they have. We've actually been getting a lot of feedback from, not directly from REWA, but from our other real estate agents who have been very supportive. REWA have had some really good points in the past. The concession rate for retirees is something that they've been calling for. It's a good 2 or 3 years now. So we sort of pinched their idea a little bit, but it is a good idea. That's why we support it. So the more that associations that advocate and get behind this, the better. You've got the Surveyors Association, they can get behind some stuff like this because they still can benefit from the established market. You've got, and you mentioned a few like the valuers. We've got building inspections and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that feed off this. There is such a massive industry that relies on the established market, and I think it's really important that those other associations pay attention. We've been reaching out to a lot of them, and hopefully we'll get some of their backing.
Yeah, and also, you talk about a lot of other industries. I mean, when we first started coming up with the idea of Property Avenue 1 WA, and then of course because we specifically didn't want it to be about my settlement agency. My observation was there was something there that needed to happen for the WA property market. Hence what we've got happening here. And once you sit down and start writing down, and once all of a sudden people contact you, and then you've got Sandy at Stewart Title with regard to title insurance, then you've got Justin over here who's got general insurance, then you've got what's his name, Jordan with finance broking, and then you sort of have a look at all the different things with regard to the various topics that you can discuss about property. It highlights what a massive impact the downside in a market could have on so many different industries and so many different professions. And I know certainly just doing something as simple as what we're doing here, it's highlighted I mean, I don't think I'll ever run out of topics, and then things with regard to yourself, even with the people you're talking to, there's opportunity for other subjects and other topics to be discussed within what AIC does, within the different markets in the property market. So yeah, you're right. It's a big area that's being affected, and maybe they all need to get on board and be aware of that.
Yeah, and we're talking about established business owners here, people who went out on their own, and like yourself, took the punt. You opened up an office, you grew, you took on staff, and each week you got to turn those lights on, and you got to bring in business, and it's tough. And for that established industry, whether it be conveyancers or real estate agents or valuers, whoever, if they're not getting support as small business owners, then we've got some problems, and that's what we need to address here. And it's not about leveraging off home buyers so you can stay afloat. It's about everybody benefiting from this. So investors, first home buyers, established home buyers, homeowners, I should say. Everyone can benefit from a smart, intelligent market system, because after all, these are nest eggs that we're dealing with. People buy homes in the knowledge and the hope that it's going to be worth something in 10 years down the track or 15 years down the track. After all, we're like hamsters on a little wheel, trying to pay off our mortgages, for that one day that we can pay it off and sell our homes and get a decent price and hopefully downsize or make that sea change or that tree change. So.
And the other thing that I'll add to that is going back to the little grey-haired, silver-haired people like myself. But the fact being is that, the other thing being is we're now trying to encourage people, because we are getting an older age group, and we are entering that world. But we're also, you see some of the ads now, they're encouraging people to stay at home, encouraging people, because it's a lot of money. You've got I know I'm going through some grief at the moment with my dear old mum who's in aged care and having to sell her home. But the fact being is that we are trying to, you see it, they're trying to encourage people to start home and for longer, and people are more happier doing that. I mean, but if we have a system in place and where there's a concession like we've been talking about for the older fraternity, and they can downsize and not have a huge impact on their financial position, because not everybody's got a great big nest egg over in the back corner here of the room. Then if they can sell that property and buy something smaller and have some money left over, which again is alleviating any pressure on government pensions, etc.
Yeah.
Hello. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and a lot of retirees, as you know, are very proud. They've got a lot of pride. they have no issue whatsoever in downsizing, taking that money and then living off that, and not drawing on pensions or going to the government for a handout. So you're right, and yet there's no support for them. So that's why these initiatives
Mate, we try to keep this down at about the 35 minute mark. We've above that, but I was expecting that because we're a bit passionate about it all. But it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll certainly what we'll do is that this is a weekly stream, and for those that have been following us, we do Property Avenue WA is on every week. Next week we're going to do something different. I've got a previous guest who's adamant that he wants to turn the tables and he wants to interview me. So next week we've got Oscar De Souza. So I'm looking forward to that. This should be a bit of fun. But more importantly, mate, we'll definitely keep in touch and would love to have you on again at some point. Certainly keep up to date. We'll keep everybody informed as to where things are progressing. But really appreciate you coming on board and accepting our invite. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Great. Thank you, Tony. Pleasure, mate. And I'll don't run away, but we've just got to do a little. We've got to do a little ad, and then we'll. Listen, thanks again. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've been, it gets a lot of fun every week. Dion was fantastic, and I'll have a chat to him and shortly off air, of course. But if you've got any questions, you've got anything that we've commented about tonight, or you've got any thoughts and ideas, questions you want to know, you're more than welcome to send us an email. You can send it via our website and or our more particularly our Facebook page at Champion Bay Settlements. But thanks for joining us. It's been great fun, and have a great week, and please take care. Thanks a million.